This here is Ferg from the Atari 2600 Game by Game podcast. And when I'm not playing my banjo in space, I like to listen to the SNES podcast with your hosts Greg and George. You sure do have a purty mouth.
$200, a Super Nintendo setup costs twice as much as the old system. For the money, the company promises better pictures, sound, and adventure. Now you're playing with power, superpower. You're the king, I tell you! The king!
Only for Super NES. You're listening to the SNES podcast with your hosts, Soul Blazer and George.
Hello, everybody. Good morning or afternoon or evening, depending upon when you're listening to this. But regardless, we're glad to have you here. This is episode 73 of the Super NES podcast. I am one of your regular co-hosts, Greg, and as always, joined by my other faithful co-host, George.
Good evening. It is evening right now.
It is evening as we're recording this, but we don't know when you're listening to this. But
well, you know what? It's you when you're listening to this. It's evening right now. I don't care if it's 10 in the morning. It just turned into 10 at night. So what are you doing up so late? Go to bed.
Well then,
you wanted? I don't know. You always criticize how I intro things. So
well, on that bright, cheery note,
it was bright enough, wasn't it?
We're gonna be talking about a game. Segue. That's actually not that bright.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, talking about bright and cheery. That's how I felt playing this game. If you couldn't hint at my sarcasm.
In both like gameplay and also in the graphics. So
Oh yeah.
But I know this game's a favorite for at least one person out there listening to this. So I will say. So I will give compliments, like a compliment to the game or compliment to do. So it's not going to be a complete, ragging on things because we don't do that here.
I try not to crap on games.
No, I try not to either. But
yeah.
But there is a lot to crap about in this particular case.
Not to poo-poo on it.
We're looking at another arcade conversion like in this episode. We're looking at the Super NES port of Pit Fighter, which was originally an arcade game put out by Atari Games in 1990, and was developed by Tengen and published by THQ of the Super NES in March 1992 for worldwide release.
Man, the police are very angry at you right now.
Yeah, one of the downsides of living in a city, but
hey, stop talking about Pit Fighter.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's gonna get worse in a few weeks, like when the window gets open and the AC gets put in. So.
Oh man, my AC's already in. I wish I could use it.
But yeah, well, right now we're freezing our switches off, so I don't think so.
Oh, I can't wait to sleep in it.
But yeah, speaking about being cold, I think these fighters in this game are probably kind of cold because they have kind of because all the fighters in the game are shirtless.
You're as cold as ice.
So anyway, we've already talked about our we've already talked about Atari games before in the past episode, the Rampart episode. Despite being broken off from Atari Corporation, they continued to make great arcade games all through the rest of the 80s, and all through the 90s. And 1990...
Including Pit Fighter?
Well, Pit Fighter was very successful. Pit Fighter was very successful when it came out, for reasons I will talk about here in a moment. The game's popular enough that Konami actually licensed the game for release in Japan, so they handled the Japanese market.
Was this released before Mortal Kombat?
I was going to get to that. 1990 was a year in which Street Fighting. That will tie in a moment, in which fighting games were starting to become popular, but they hadn't really become the craze that the arcade market would soon have. The original Street Fighter was already out, and there were a couple of other what you would call like one-on-one beat-em-up games already out at this point, such as like such as like Bound to Fight by Taito and Street Smart by SNK. I'm differentiating, mind you, the one-on-one beat-em-ups between the fight and go right style games, such as like Final Fight, Double Dragon, etc. But Mortal Kombat was not out yet. Street Fighter 2 was not out yet. The really big names that you think of for fighting games were not out yet. But the genre has started to gain some popularity, and this was an attempt by Atari to try to capitalize upon this growing market with a very unique innovation. And again, this innovation was one of the reasons that the game was so popular like in the arcades. It actually used digitized live actors.
Yep.
It was a pretty simple process, very similar to how a movie was done, like how later games such as Mortal Kombat would also utilize the process. They hired some people, put them in front of a blue screen, had them act out their various moves, captured the footage, digitized it, and put it back into the arcade game. So as a result, like playing the arcade game, you had these very large, very good looking actual pictures. Actual pictures like the fighters, and this was a very new concept at the time. Pit Fighter was only the second game, the second arcade game to have been released using this technique. The first one was a Japanese only game by a company called Home Data, called Rikaishi, the Chinese Exorcist. So contrary to popular belief, Pit Fighter was not the first game to be released with digitized sprites. However, it was the first one like in the U.S. So
was it the first? Okay. I was gonna ask if it was the first fighting game that did digitized sprites.
Yes, it was. Yep, and it was the first arcade game in the U.S. period that actually did that. Do you have any experience with the arcade version, George? Either by playing it like on the actual machine or checking out a MAME?
Nope, I watched gameplay of it. That's it.
Well, as far as the actual gameplay goes, it's pretty standard compared to many other fighting games. You can pick from 3 different characters. You have a Buzz, who's a big and strong ex-professional wrestler. Tai, who's an agile kickboxing champion, and Kato, who's a quick third-degree black belt. And you have during the course of the game, you go up against 8 different unplayable opponents, who are the Executioner, Southside Jim, Angel, CC Rider, Mad Miles, Heavy Metal, Sherman Eddie, and Masked Warrior. And the game goes through 10 matches, and there's also 10 matches where you have to beat your opponent one-on-one. And there's also, and between those matches, there's also what's called a grudge match, which is kind of like a bonus round, basically. And then after the 10 matches, you have championship fight. The actual gameplay is pretty standard as far as the moves go. You have your basic moves to be able to. You have a punch, a kick. You can punch low or high, or kick high or low. You can do jump kicks. You can run around the screen, like opposed to walking by double tapping the joystick. There's also special combos that you can do, which are unique to each of the fighters, and but there's also block moves. So, like I said before, the main thing that made the game stand out was the digitized graphics. However, the game did not have a very long life like in the arcades. It was popular enough, but within 2-3 years later, games like Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter 2 would come out. It pretty much buried this game, and it kind of faded from the scene very quickly after that point. There was a planned sequel, actually. EGM in 1993 gave a very full coverage about the planned Pit Fighter 2 game. which was supposed to be for Genesis that year, and it was supposed to have some new fighters involved on it, and just basically kind of be like a graphical rehash of the original game. That game never came out, however. Atari did release a pseudo-sequel called Guardians of the Hood, like in the arcades in 1992, which also used digitized graphics and same style as Pit Fighter, but that game was a bomb and very quickly disappeared from sight. And it never got a home release. Where this game, because of its popularity, got ported to a wide number of systems. And eventually came out, besides the Super NES, the game also came out on the Amiga, the Amstrad CPC, the Atari ST, the C64, MS-DOS, Game Boy, Lynx Master System, Genesis, and the Spectrum. And some of these ports are just yeah. Why they even decided to even try to port this to systems like the Spectrum and the Game Boy is beyond me, because they look horrible. So as bad as Super NES version looks in some respects, those versions are 10 times worse. So.
Well, of course they are. They're way more limited than the SNES.
Yeah.
So I don't knock it for its limitations. They just didn't know how to properly do it.
True. So because of the tremendous history between Atari and Nintendo, which I don't think we need to go about. You go in detail in this podcast, but suffice to say, these companies didn't get along very well. Tengen did not release any games themselves on the Super NES. Tengen being the home video game division of Atari Games, but they didn't develop all the port of these games. And in Super NES, they licensed the rights to publish Pit Fighter to THQ, which was a pretty large publishing company during this time period.
Rest in peace, THQ.
Yeah, they had some good games, but it was ultimately the rush of bad games versus good that doomed them.
I want to say in its infancy, there were most of their games weren't too great. As time went on, obviously they started publishing better stuff.
Right.
And then they made a stupid mistake and they went bankrupt. and now the name has been sold to Nordic Games. If you didn't know that, so
True.
There's some modern game stuff for you. But let's go back to the SNES. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Go back to the SNES.
Oh, there was also a planned port of the game, believe it or not, for the Atari 7800s. That was being developed late in the system's lifetime.
And then they realized that the sound was terrible, and they said, "Oh God, what is this?" Throw it in the trash. No, I'm kidding. The sound is terrible.
It was more due to the fact that the game was being developed in 1992, and the Link, when the 7800 was pretty much already officially dead anyway.
Were you gonna say the Lynx?
Well, I was, but the game did. But the game did come out the Lynx, and apparently the Lynx version is pretty playable. Apparently,
I actually kind of want to get a Lynx. Am I crazy?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, the Master System game, the Master System version of this game, it at least looks playable. But
I do want to get that version and see how it is.
But yeah. One other big difference with the one other big innovation with the arcade game was that that supported 3 players playing simultaneously, which had to be cut from all the home versions.
Of course,
Yeah,
naturally.
Right. Yeah. And there's also. So going to play the game now.
I don't.
It has been. It has been included. It has been included in some arcade collections, such as the Midway Arcade Treasure 2 from 2004, for the GameCube, PlayStation 2, and Xbox. And it's also it's also on the Midway Arcade Treasures Deluxe Edition 2006, the PC. So those games. Be warned that those versions of the games do run a bit faster than the arcade version because it's running a more powerful hardware. Digital Eclipse wasn't quite able to get the issues worked out. So, but a little bit of extra speed in this game is probably okay because it can be kind of slow in parts. But so as the name implies, you are fighting in. You're not fighting in pits per se. Pits is a slang term for an underground fight. kind of like behind the scenes, unauthorized, very hush hush, kind of like a grudge match that goes on.
Like Fight Club.
Yeah, exactly. So, but they, so like you're fighting in front of like a large crowd, like in a warehouse. The people will occasionally, at least in the arcade version, there are some people like in the crowd who like run out of it, just like attack you every now and then, like weapons, which adds like an added, would add degree of difficulty.
Thank God it was not in this version.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's missing most of it's missing most of the home versions. What was kept in this version of the game, however, was that every now and then you can throw your opponent actually like into the crowd. And the crowd, the crowd will push the fighter back. The crowd pushes the fighter back out like the ring, like every after a few seconds, because they have to be stunned. So it allows you to get some like cheap hits in.
There's no way I'd be able to try to do that because I was trying to survive the rounds.
Right.
And wow, wow. Yeah.
So as the name implies, you also earn money for winning your matches. Money determined in several ways. There's a fight purse, which is automatically set depending upon which match that you're in, going anywhere from like $5,000 up to $100,000.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, it is. There's the per head bonus, which is only in 2-player mode, which is given to you if you deliver the finishing hit to your opponent. There's also the brutality bonus, which I don't know how is calculated, and apparently nobody else does. So, I guess just be more brutal to your opponent and fighting them, I guess, to rack up that money.
I love very cryptic things in games, and that is sarcasm.
And you also get an attack bonus from $20 to $100 for any kind of attack that you do, just randomly. So, and the money is your score in this game. So that's pretty much how it's used to determine like your final score.
What's really cool is when you finish a fight, you're on a forklift, and they raise you higher the more money you get.
Yeah, that's nice.
And that is cool.
Yeah.
Like, I want to stand on a forklift and collect money.
So the Super NES and Genesis versions of this game are considered to be some of the best ports. The Amiga version is probably the best one, hands down, as far as the actual most arcade faithful. Just that many of the 8 and 16-bit systems that this game was trying to be ported to, like many other arcade games at the time, couldn't really quite pull off the game because they didn't have the power and processing speed to really be able to handle the game fully. So, the Amiga being a 32-bit computer system was probably the best ability to be able to have the most faithful home ports. So, the Super NES and Genesis versions of the game at least like play pretty well. The big differences between them is that the Super NES version has your characters look better. The graphics for the graphics, like the fighters themselves, are better than the Genesis version. But the Genesis version has like better colors overall, and the background crowd is also like more sharply defined, like that version of the game.
Yeah, we actually talked about this a while before we recorded this.
Yeah.
It's just so weird how different a game can be on a different platform at that time.
Well, like I said, in these systems cases, they use totally different processors. So a company would often have two different crews working, or teams, I should say, working on both systems simultaneously. Trying to handle the ins and outs of that particular system's strengths, strengths and weaknesses. And it definitely shows in this game. One curious omission in the Super NES version of the game is there's no health bar shown. Whereas with the arcade version and the Genesis port, you can see your hit points left.
Yeah, the HUD is very limited in this version, which is really weird.
I don't know why they did that.
It's all just numbers and letters.
It's strange. I don't know why. I don't know why they chose to do it that way. My only guess is that this game got released internationally. It also got released in Europe and Japan at the same time as North America, so maybe they wanted to make it kind of a universal system. But the gauge is universal too, so I really don't know.
They were lazy. We'll just say they were lazy.
They could have been lazy. Tengen usually did pretty good ports like their arcade games, so I really don't know. It could have been a rush job, but I'm not like really sure. This version of the game also lacks actually, now that I think about it, you're probably right, George. Like this being a lazy port because not only does this version of the game lack that, it also lacks the interactive audience weapons that are touched upon earlier, and it also and it's also missing 3 of your 8 opponents. Southside Jim, Heavy Metal, and Mad Miles like are present in this port.
You know what else it's missing? Good music and good gameplay.
The music in the game is, it's basic fighting stuff, I guess you could say, if you're being generous about it.
I mean, the music isn't super important.
Yeah.
For this, but
it doesn't have.
I don't know.
Yeah. It does not have the good music that Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter 2 do. Let's just put it that way.
Oh yeah.
But those games have great musical soundtracks. This one does not.
It just the same song looped over and over?
I think so.
I think there's only one track.
But I mean, it was pretty obvious. It was pretty obvious that Atari put all their effort in trying to promote the graphics of this game, and really didn't put as much effort like the other parts of the game.
Right.
So, but gameplay, well, it's kind of hard to say because I remember playing this game briefly, like in the arcades, like it was new because this game came out right in the time when I was playing playing a lot of games like in the arcades. But it's like I never was a huge fighting game fan, so I just pretty much just played it once for the novelty, and that's pretty much it. And this week for the podcast is the first time I actually sat down and played any of the home ports, much as the Super NES version, and it's like. When the game came out, I can see why the game did well when it came out because they did graphics maybe missing like this version of the game, but still a pretty decent one-on-one fighting game. There are worse.
It was kind of like the Mortal Kombat at the time until Mortal Kombat came out.
Until Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter 2 came out, and that pretty much like buried this game.
All bets were off. Yeah.
But I think this is. I don't think this is the worst fighting game that we played so far for the system, George.
No, oh wait, I don't know. When I was playing this, I kind of wish I was playing Street Combat. No lie.
Seriously?
Honestly, I have more. Like I said, I don't mean to poo-poo this game. I don't want to crap talk it, but like, I think I have more fun playing Street Combat than this game.
I definitely had more fun playing this game Street Combat, mostly because.
How far did you get in this game?
I was gonna say, one of the reasons I thought this game was better was because I actually thought the actual AI was actually fair in this game, like and blatantly cheated.
Whoa, hold on a second. You thought the AI in this game was fair?
Yeah.
Whoa! What? I thought the AI was very unfair. All they would do is just keep hitting me and hitting me. I barely had a chance to fight back. Which is really weird because I saw a video where somebody beat it in 9 minutes and completely cheated the system with like one attack.
I was gonna say I mostly just use jump kicks and special attacks like on my opponents, and because I was able to make it, I was able to make it up to like match 6.
It's funny how the problem was that I was trying to play this as a fighting game.
And that's one of the problems like in this game. I mean, like now, this game does not have the depth of moves or the fighters available to you, or the combos really that other later fighting games like would have. I mean, so
many buttons on the controller, and you don't do much.
I mean, this game's important in the history. This game's important in the history of the genre because it's like this was one of the very first successful fighting games, and like I said before, one of the first games to use digitized graphics. well, I'm sorry, like use digitized actors, I should say. But
Right.
yeah, it's got, as the case of many other things in life, it just simply got improved upon by stuff that came upon later on. So,
Yeah, I mean, like the port is kind of important because having this type of game come from arcade to go to home, and it's one of those digitized actor type of things, and have it be a playable game is an important thing. Saying, hey, look, we can do this on these consoles now. Like, that's good, that's cool.
Right.
But they probably should try to fine-tune it a little bit more. The arcade game seems alright. I haven't really played it, so I can't really tell. But it seemed better than what came out for this. I kind of wish I played the Genesis version to see how that went. But
Yeah.
I'm afraid that it's just going to be kind of like this.
I played the Genesis version like a little bit just to compare it. It's like it is basically the same. I think Genesis version of the game is like a little bit better, to be honest, because it has some of the features that are missing out of the Super NES version that are present in that one.
Yeah.
You know, even and like overall, I'd rather have the better, brighter colors and the more defined background graphics as compared to the like really sharp fighters themselves. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I also played the arcade game though to familiarize myself with that, and just like again, I mean, it's like even if the game had been ported perfectly over to to Super NES, it's still a very basic, by today's definition, fighting game. I mean, it's just like the game does have its fans out there, and I understand why the game has its fans, because it does have because like I said, it's important in the history of the genre, and its core, it's still a basic, fun fighting game. I mean, like, you know, if you, to its advantage, it's not as complex as Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter 2. There's not as many combo moves to learn. There's no hidden stuff. You don't have to memorize things. If you just want a basic, decent-looking fighting game, this game was fine, like, in that respect, which is why it provided its fans like to this day. But like I said, most of the home versions, because they were trying to get released on inferior 8 and 16-bit systems, well, at least inferior compared to the arcade hardware, just really couldn't pull it off like very well. So, and this really,
I do want to make that argument that it feels a little lazy.
it does feel lazy, which is strange because I said before, Tekken.
There could be better. They could have tweaked the fighting and the AI a little bit better.
Definitely, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of surprising because Tekken usually makes like good like arcade ports. Like, we played Rampart before in the past episode, and that was also a Tengen game. That was very well done.
Yeah, it was a good game.
I mean, Tengen usually ported their stuff very, very well to home systems. I'm not sure what happened in this case.
No idea.
Yeah, so
It might have been one of those like corporate things, like, hey,
Yeah.
we need to get this out. We want to make our money.
yeah.
Put this out now. What's taking so long? Get this out. It might have been one of those type of things, and
Right.
like that's gross.
I will give some so I will give some kudos like about the options menu, like in this game. You are allowed to select the difficulty rating, which is always nice. So there's three different difficulty options. Two-player mode is still here. You can either play in a normal game mode or practice game mode, which is practice is just a simple grudge match to familiarize yourself like with the game. There's a music and sound test. I don't know why you'd want to access that, but it's there if you want to.
Music test? Oh, you can
Yeah.
play the same one track over and over, huh?
And you can tell this game was intended for a worldwide release because you can also select, very curiously enough, something you don't see very often in console games of this time period. You can select the language, like English, and play the game either like in English or Japanese.
Oh, very helpful.
Yes,
No, that is interesting though.
it is interesting because, like I said,
Because you don't see many games like that around the time.
Exactly. So again,
Yeah.
it kind of hints at the fact that again, it kind of hints at the fact that this game was like released worldwide at the same time because they were trying to get
I find interesting because like I remember a bunch of PlayStation games having the language selection, and now I'm just thinking about it and saying, wait, why have language selection when different territories, when you're releasing it in North America, why put different languages in that version, you know?
Yeah.
Because I don't know, whatever. Let's not get into that. It just made me think of PlayStation games and selecting languages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, as far as characters go, I thought Ty was the best character.
Is that...
He's a kickboxer guy who's very fast.
Yeah, I think that's the guy that really, like, really just makes the game super cheap.
But you can't do that.
He has a one. I think that's the guy that has the one frame elbow attack,
right,
which is crazy.
Yeah.
So you just knock somebody down and you just constantly elbow, and when they get up, they just fall over again.
Right.
It's like, oh, great, yeah, that's wow.
Also, for the game's credit, there is large amount of weapons, weapons available to you. Like to play through the game. Wooden crates, knives, ninja stars, bar stools, metal drums, wooden barrels, power pills, motorcycles, and sticks.
Oh my.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, the power pill is not really a weapon. It's just more like a it's more like it's more like a super steroid. Like you're pretty much invincible to your opponent for like 15 seconds.
I was gonna ask if it was like if it was like steroids.
That's pretty much what it is.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. I don't think they work that quickly though in real life.
No, they don't.
I could be wrong, but
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, the weapons don't really do a ton of damage, but they are useful. Useful, like being able to stand off a distance like your opponent and get some like cheap hits in. So, so they are nice for that. Yeah. So we already talked about the graphics. The Super NES version of the game has very good graphics for your characters, but the rest of the graphics are kind of muddy and washed out, not really all that good. Again, the Super NES can do a lot better than this. So,
when you're selecting your character on that screen, it looks pretty good.
Yeah, title screen's good, selection screen's very good. The box cover's great. Like said you like the picture of the box cover?
No, I have not.
Yeah, great picture there too. So, but they just like they get you into the game with all this like very promising promising graphics, and the actual gameplay is just like like it's okay. But yeah, so that's just basically the replay value of this game is probably pretty limited once you actually get good at the game. Like George said, there's a video of somebody out there going through the whole game in 10 minutes. So once you get good at this game, I don't think the replay value is probably not that good. And actually, this game's more fun to play against somebody else. Two-player mode could probably like keep you playing this game for like a while longer.
This box art is like super generic.
Well, it's taken straight from the arcade game.
Huh.
So.
I like how the SNES box art is missing a crucial detail, and that is the people holding up money in front of the guy who's punching the other guy.
Oh yeah,
also,
true. Yeah.
If you look at the SNES cover, first of all, there's some weird stuff going on with like the saturation and stuff like that, which is weird. But anyway, if you took Pit Fighter out of this and you only had the guy punching the other guy like that, you could probably Photoshop like a generic wrestling game title on it and just say it's a wrestling game, because that's what it honestly looks like that.
Yeah, probably like Buzz. Well, Buzz, the beefcake power guy in the game. The backstory is the backstory does have him. He's
an ex-pro wrestler.
Yeah, you could totally do that. Which is kind of strange. It kind of makes me wonder. Like, you might know more about this, George, but I really haven't thought about this. I wonder how many people have moved from like boxing into wrestling, like vice versa.
Boxing.
Well, I mean, like boxing, the closest comparison I can make to like, the kind of fighting that goes on here, because the kind of fighting is illegal and it's something that doesn't really happen like in real life. So,
the wrestlers don't go into boxing, or boxers don't go into wrestling. It's more like wrestlers go into MMA, or MMA fighters go into wrestling.
Yeah, that's probably a better. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, it's a true thing. Like, I mean,
that's
Brock Lesnar is like the number one example there, but there are a few different wrestlers who have gone from there or come from there.
Right.
Yeah. Boxing would be like, boxing is a weird thing to come from.
Yeah, I suppose so. I just had I just had a brain fart like about the MMA like for some reason. So, but that's a better comparison. But
that's fine. It's yeah.
But so overall, final thoughts here. Like I said, this is an important fighting game in the history of the genre.
Oh man, we're already in final thoughts.
Well, I mean, it's a fighting game. How much can you say about a fighting game?
Well, I mean, it depends on what kind of fighting. Like, if it was like a Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter, you can go on for a
of
while.
course, right.
Yeah.
But
this is Pit Fighter.
But I was just gonna say, for the early fighting games, it doesn't have the wide variety of moves and characters and combos and special stuff that other games in the genre would have. So therefore, it's a pretty basic game. Nothing's bad in that respect. It's just that it's a very basic game, and that's why it has to get. That's why I think the game still has some fans to this day, because the fact that it is a very simple, basic, not messy, not complicated fighting game. Just like, one-on-one, you get in there, you fight, you move on. But, and I totally understand why this game was very popular when it came out, because especially digitized actors actually be in the game, which also extended, by the way, by the way, the digitized graphics also extended not only to the fighters, but also to the background crowd. There were a number of Atari programmers and people who got their likenesses scanned in to actually be in the game. In the background, like cheering you on, or like throwing money in the ring, or that kind of stuff. So,
I think the reason why this was like a hit for a while was probably because the violence was more up there, because these were like actual people quote unquote scanned into the game.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's a good point. So
violence sells.
Right.
Is the name of the game really in fighting games. And how do you make it more violent? How do you make it more quote unquote realistic? You get in these people, you take pictures of them doing things and put them in the game, and wow, this looks more realistic. So that's at least at that time what draws in people for fighting games. Now it's like how the combo system works, and I don't know much about modern fighting games.
Yeah, I have friends who really enjoy the fighting games, and the modern ones like Street Fighter V, and
which has gotten a lot of crap.
Like news like Mortal Kombat. Their main appeal is the number of characters. The number of characters that are possible select from, the combo moves available, and just the overall feel of the game. Does it actually flow well in your hands? Which is kind of a hard thing to describe verbally, but yeah, those are the things that modern fighting game fans are pretty much looking for. But yeah, like you said, George, that's a great point. The game was very unique when it came out for several areas. Something that, of course, Midway noticed and took the idea and ran upon a couple years later with Mortal Kombat. So this game's important in the history of the genre. But if you want to play this game today, definitely play the arcade version itself. The home, all the home ports are suffering or lacking, like in some like way, shape, or form.
I do want to see that Master System version, though.
The Master System version like looks okay, actually. I mean, they shrunk down the fighters. They really shrunk down the fighters. The fighters in that game. It's like 6 inches tall. It looks like.
I mean, it's the Master System. It's an 8-bit console. You can't. But I don't know how you're gonna do Pit Fighter on there. They tried. And that's interesting enough.
The graphics look like pretty good though, like what it is.
Yeah.
So I mean, I have no idea how. Yeah, I have no idea how it plays. That's one version I didn't check out, but I'm sure it's fine. But yeah, just like the Super NES version of this game is pretty lacking as far as the port. I don't know. I'm not sure if it was Rush Job or the programmers assigned doing it were not experienced with programming on the Super NES, or what the deal was. But the Genesis and Amiga version of the game are much better. But having said that, nowadays market, like I said, 2017, you go and play the game. The arcade version is the way to go. The game's easily playable in MAME, and MAME it's like it's also available in several arcade collections, like I said. So yeah, I recognize the importance that this game had. I recognize that was an important milestone. And I did have some fun with the game. There are some things to recommend the game for sure, but compared to like Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat,
it might be more fun with a buddy. I want to say.
Like I said earlier, I'm quite sure this game has more would have some more appeal. Like you're playing with somebody else. But still,
you know how you turn these games into better games, Greg? You turn them into like drinking games.
Drinking games.
That's kind of my plan on games that are not so good.
But still, George, I have to ask you: would you rather play two-player Pit Fighter or two-player like Mortal Kombat?
Obviously, Mortal Kombat.
But yeah, so I mean, it's like. Yeah, the appeal of this game is limited. I mean, like I said, the game has its fans still to this day. And very curiously enough, when the game came out, like Genesis, Megatech magazine in Europe rated this game 27th, like in their list of like top Mega Drive games of all time.
Really?
Which makes you think of how much they were paid.
I was gonna ask how many games do the Genesis have? Like 50? Like.
Their library.
How does that get on the list there? Either they weren't really playing games on the Genesis, or something happened there. Woo.
But yeah, so I don't know about that. So
yeah, I don't know either. That's weird.
So, do you have any other final thoughts about the game before we move on to eBay?
It's an interesting thing. Maybe check it out for 5 minutes and then put it away and forget about it.
Especially if you're a fighting game fan. Yeah, by all means, check this game out if you haven't played it. You played it before, because
if you're interested in video game history, or you're really into like history of fighting games or something, like for sure check this out and see what has happened, but also play the arcade version and just like. This is how things were back then. Keep that a mental note. Like getting the arcade experience at home was difficult until like the generation after, or
right,
maybe even generation after.
Well, by this generation, the 16-bit systems were starting to do pretty good arcade ports. Not perfect, but very good arcade ports.
It depends on what game it was, because there were some arcade games that required like special hardware or something, or they just did too much, and the SNES version or whatever version, the home version had to be toned down, or
yeah.
I think we kind of talked about this on. One of the past episodes.
We did. It really wasn't until the 32-bit systems came out that you started to have like really perfect arcade ports.
And very rarely you'll find that one game that is better than the arcade version, and that is UN Squadron. Which is actually pretty true. I enjoy the SNES version of UN Squadron much better than the arcade version.
There's probably a couple. Yeah, there's probably a couple Super NES games that I see would probably better than the arcade version. But
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, because this game is not very well liked, the reviews on this game online are absolutely horrible.
That's not surprising, to be honest.
You can get this game for pretty cheap on eBay.
Of course. I have. I might as well just sell it for $1.
It's not that cheap, it's pretty bad. There's plenty of copies of the game available. 65 copies currently listed, 28 copies that recently sold. You can have a cart only in the game for anywhere from like $4 to $11.
I'd actually pay that much just to have it on the shelf.
Yeah.
And then somebody can come over and say, what the heck is this? And I'll say, oh, yeah, here, pop it in for 5 minutes and see how far you can get.
If you're a collector, CIB copies are very affordable also. They sold anywhere from $12.50 to $20.
That's actually not too bad.
And there was even a sealed copy of the game that sold for $70.
No, thank you. That's nope.
Yep, factory sealed still, mid condition.
Okay, so sometimes you need to watch out. I don't know why I'm just bringing this up now, but you need to watch out with some of these sellers because sometimes they will get a good condition CIB and then seal it themselves.
True. Yeah, there's several.
Some shady crap.
Yep.
Going on with that stuff.
If you're interested, If you're interested in this, there are several very good videos out there which show exactly what the factory scene with Super NES games looks like and that kind of stuff, and how to protect yourself.
I bought some like PS2 games before, where it didn't have that security strip on the side.
Curious.
But it was sealed. But like, what's interesting was the case was like in perfect condition. Game was in perfect condition, so I don't know like what kind of seal it was. I don't know if it didn't look like it was used because everything was like in super, like it was like super new condition. So I don't know what that was about.
That's why personally I think sealed games collectors are nuts, because it's like, how do you actually, even with all these precautions,
to them it's very it's somewhat easy to figure out. It's like those people who are really into buying like Game Boy games or Game Boy Advance games, and like, oh, this Pokemon Ruby is only like $10. Wait a second, and they look at it. It's like, oh, this, and this are wrong on the. Actually, I can kind of point that out too now.
Yeah.
But you can like look at the motherboard. You can look at the label, like what the plastic looks like. There are people out there who can tell just by looking at the plastic. It's crazy, but
yeah.
Hey, if that is your hobby, like, you will get into it and you will figure, eventually you'll pick that stuff up, saying, oh wait, this is like a bootleg or a fake, because the Nintendo logo on the motherboard is wrong, or it's in the wrong spot, or it's just like, man, like, that is so cool that you know that, but you have experience, my friend. Oh man. Yeah. Also, my favorite part about buying PlayStation games is finding some of them factory sealed.
Right.
Like, literally factory sealed, like, that security thing and everything.
Yeah.
And they're like cheap. So like, I got Chrono Cross factory sealed for like $15.
Wow, that's a great price.
And I found I want to say Siphon Filter 2 and 3, or maybe just 3 was sealed or something like that. And that was actually cheap. Like, I think I bought all 3 Siphon Filters and they were pretty cheap. Anyway, people can be terrible. They can put out fake stuff, or they can put out used stuff and make it look like it's factory sealed. So be careful with that. I haven't encountered too much of that kind of stuff, but there are people out there. Also, if you're buying cartridge stuff, make sure it is legitimate. There are a bunch of sites out there. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but I know there are a bunch of sites out there that can help you figure out if a game is fake or not.
True. Yep.
Yeah.
There's even still available for sale on some Super NES games, because I've talked about this before, like some bad pod, but like the past episodes, there are still some shipping crate boxes of games that go for sale every now and then. Actual unopened shipping boxes of 6 games, copies of the games, so in fact.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, which just came to that because of course that's how the games get shipped to the store, and then the stores open them up and take out the games. So, but yeah, Space Invaders.
Is that because of they were forgotten, or they just didn't get out on shelves, or what?
Probably a combination. For example, I remember one of them that happened. One of them I remember seeing this for is Space Invaders, and Space Invaders probably was not a huge seller. So
yeah,
just yeah, it's this. It's not like this is not like the pre-crash days in which games were way overproduced and produced, and which resulted in new games being sold for 99 cents 20 years later. But certain games were overproduced for one reason or another, and then they just got sealed away and forgotten about. So
I want to say that stuff doesn't really happen nowadays because of being able to track stuff easily on the machines in your store or whatever.
Yeah,
but, I feel like that doesn't happen really much anymore.
On the contrary, a lot of companies will underproduce games. I'm looking particularly at Jew Atlas.
Oh yeah.
But yeah. If you want an Atlas game, buy it in the first month because you're in the first month of release, because you won't find it again after that point.
And if you want to buy something from Nintendo, they've been recently terrible with this. They are the underproducing company of the world, especially with the NES Classics.
Oh, yep.
And they stopped putting them out here, which is great. So now you see people selling them for $400 or something on eBay.
Yeah, I wanted one, but I couldn't find one. So I couldn't buy one because I was you just gave up on it. And Robert,
I was actually interested. I was thinking about buying one for the parents, but I'm not paying $200 for one.
And relevant to the podcast, it does look like a Super NES mini is coming out. You're coming out later on this year also.
Really?
Which I think is going to happen. Which I think is going to have the exact same thing happen to it. Underproduced and hard to find. So,
I want to see what games they put on that.
If they do the same thing as they did with the Mini, and get third-party companies involved also, there could be a very good selection of games. On that thing.
Because I know they kind of made some weird selections for the NES Classic.
Well, I thought the NES Classic had very good games. There really was only a few.
They made choices like Castlevania 2, which is
Castlevania 2 was a cult favorite, so I like the game a lot. So I would defend that being on there, but there's really only a few games on that thing that I think are kind of weak. But if the Mini does come out, Super NES Mini does come out, I'm curious to see how many games I would probably have. I'm thinking probably maybe 30 games probably, but because Super NES ROM sizes are not that much bigger than NES sizes, so they probably can cram in a pretty good selection of stuff.
Thinking about it now, I think they might have stopped production on the NES Classic maybe because of the modding on it, which was so easy because all you had to do was plug something into the USB port, and that's it. There's really nothing differentiating the NES Mini from any of the other third-party systems already out there that also do NES emulation. So the main appeal to it was just the fact it was official. So, but anyway. That's our game for this episode. We thank you very much for tuning in to us. Next time on the podcast is still TBA. I hate doing this, but we're trying to line up some more guest hosts coming onto the podcast. People have expressed interest. It's just a matter of trying to finagle them into their busy schedules and busy lives to be able to make time to come out here with us. So we may have a guest episode for you coming up next. If not, the game that we're going to be looking at
is going to be another arcade port. In this case, a game I didn't even know existed until about a week ago. So I'm very, very curious to find out how the Super NES port of the game plays. They were going to be looking at Operation Thunderbolt, which is the more obscure sequel to Operation Wolf, the classic behind-the-person shooting game by Taito. So the Super NES version of the game has very distinct differences to it, which I think would be very interesting to talk about.
Can't wait.
So that's our plan. That's our plan. Like we're unable to have a guest host, like the next episode. So, but stay tuned in. We got some stuff coming up for you pretty soon. That should be like pretty interesting. So. You can contact us on our Facebook page. We'd very much appreciate you going on there and liking us and also commenting like about stuff, like whatever. You can also check us out like on iTunes. Rating reviews on there are always highly appreciated. Or you can also feel free to email me directly about questions, comments, suggestions, etc. to the SNES podcast at yahoo.com. George and I also do another podcast together, PlayStation Power, which is not family friendly. We cover PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 games. We just finished our most recent episode, Flight on Final Fantasy VIII, which is a favorite game of mine.
Good game, definitely.
And George, what other podcast and stuff do you do?
Oh man, what else do? I do Master System Masterpieces, where we recorded an episode and then it went south. So now we're re-recording soon. Yeah, that's an interesting episode. I will get that out as quick as possible because it's been a while. But I also do the box fort, which is, you know what? You should probably not listen to it. It is nowhere near family friendly, not at all. But we just sit down and talk and have fun and turn our brains off, but that's not true. It's more like we just don't care and we just talk about whatever. And that's what makes it fun. You can find me on Twitter though, if you're interested. That's at Mr. Chief, and MiSturCheef. If you're also interested in this, I do streaming. That is the same name, same spelling on platforms that include YouTube, Ustream, Hitbox, Twitch. I think that's all of them. Work is kicking my butt, so I haven't been streaming too much, but the last game I played was Mass Effect, trying to go through the series, and that has been fun and frustrating. But yeah, that's I want to say that's about it. Find my podcasts on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, out almost anything. Apparently, it seems like a lot of third-party websites or whatever are picking up my podcasts. Greg, you should actually look into going on other platforms as well.
Yeah, I should, as soon as time allows it.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, we always appreciate support. Thank you very much for listening to our stuff. And we will be coming at you again soon with another episode. So thank you again as always for your support, and take care all.
Good night.
Nintendo controls 80% of the video market. But no matter how you play the game, or which game you play, things definitely have come a long way since Pac-Man. Now you're playing with power. From